My wealth didn't hardly blip the screen when I started, but it just grew a little bit, and eventually the graph started rising. So that passive income, you get it coming, and it starts funding your next investment, and then they start rolling over, and it really compounds quickly. And then one day you realize you're free, or you're partially free. If you can get your mind eventually to grow into the fact that leverage is where it's all at, and what you just described was using leverage, hiring an operations manager, or you can be the entrepreneur, so you can scale and grow the business while somebody else is actually doing the footwork. So that's my version of passively investing in a business, or passively owning a business.
So you're an active doctor who works because you like it,
right?
And you make way more from your passive income investments than you do from your doctor practice. Is that correct?
Right. Likely because I make so little in my doctor practice.
But that's a fair statement, that you far out earn your doctor's salary. It's optional for you.
Absolutely. We're talking about a dozen years ago, finally eclipsed my full-time surgeon salary, and it's grown since then.
Yeah, that's great. So now you get to be completely at choice. Your work is totally at choice.
Right.
So I'm curious for you, and I have some specific questions that I want to ask you that came from the book, but why do you keep working?
So, first you start, I started this journey as a doctor. Didn't know I was going to do the other things. And I enjoy it. It's the connection. I just did a goal setting retreat recently and did my core values, and they ended up being, connection, growth, and adventure. So I like the connection of meeting people every day. I get to meet 20 new people every day, get to help them out a little bit. I sort of thought a few years ago about maybe not being a doctor, because I could probably get more done, might be able to grow a business, grow my income. But I didn't like the feeling of not being able to go in and see folks that maybe I've been seeing for 15 or 20 years. And so still do it because I like it.
That's awesome. That's great. And you said 12 years ago you eclipsed your doctor's salary.
Yeah.
So what was that like when you realized that had happened?
It kind of hit me like walking through the house one day, because all I was doing was creating passive income, putting the money back into whatever business or real estate I was investing in, and sort of trying to pay little bills at a time and cover my lifestyle. I'd sort of done a little thing in my office and realized I'd covered all of my lifestyle, including the past 2 vacations that we had taken. And I realized I didn't have to work anymore. And so it was a little heady. I kind of sat around and fantasized about what I might do, and ended up going to work the next day and continuing to do
that. I hear you. Hey, a bunch of you have just joined. So hey, Judy. Hey, Tiffany. Hey, Kyle. Hey, Olga. Hey, Kenan. Hey, Jamie. Hey, Carrie. Hey, Justice. I'd love to bring you into the green room, by the way, and introduce you to everybody. So there's a link inside the Facebook group for you to come join us. And any of you who want to get in line to run a question by Tom or by me, if you want to run it about your business, feel free to go ahead and get in line. The link is in the Facebook group for you to jump into the green room. Hey, Ben, good to see you, dude. Thanks for joining us. Hey, Kay. Hey, Alicia. Good evening, Brian. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for being here. How many of you read Tom's book, Why Doctors Don't Get Rich? So this was a signed reading for this quarter, and the reason why it was assigned was so many of you work full time or are in businesses that you haven't made that pivot yet, where it's by choice, where you're in business and you're doing the business for the cash flow, which is totally necessary for a while, or you're working in jobs and you're bridging both worlds right now. You got one foot in business, you got one foot in your work, and there's a dance there. There's a balance there, right? So Tom has navigated that, but here's the thing that is so fascinating about this. Tom has been a surgeon for how many years?
Oh, golly. 35 years.
35 years, right? So since
Started
he's been a
really young.
surgeon, he's been a surgeon for 35 years. He's not replacing a $50,000 a year income.
Right.
He's replacing a much higher income. But also at the same time, if you've read Tom's book, or at least started to read Tom's book, and a bunch of you are saying in the comments that you read it, you know that high income earners are on a bigger rat race than people who are starting out with nothing. They're often more stuck than people like you. And so I tell you all of this because I want you to see that, like, if Tom can overcome this hurdle and help people get off that rat race, he can help you too, regardless of if you're an entrepreneur or if you're just looking to make that pivot. So, Tom, real quick, before I jump into kind of my set of questions, why do you think high income earners, like doctors, struggle to get out of that rat race more than most people?
Sure. I think a lot of it comes from our education system, and not a knock on the education system, but we're trained that way. We're trained to be specialists and good ones. You want your doctor to be laser focused on being a doctor and making sure that he or she does what needs to be done to help you out. Same thing with your lawyer, your engineer, your accountant, and anybody that's doing something for you. So that's one thing. We're trained to be specialists. We're not trained so much to be generalists like an entrepreneur needs to be. We sometimes aren't trained to delegate people. So, and then what happens is we get rewarded for the time we put in. We get paid sort of that high hourly wage, and you can get to feeling pretty cocky about that. How much you get paid per hour. And it creates what we call the golden handcuffs. You make a lot of money, but Parkinson's principle, the expenses rise to meet your income.
That's right.
So eventually you're sort of on a treadmill. So it takes a little bit of awareness to try to break out of what you learned in school and try to learn from people like you and what's out there in books and seminars and things like that. So.
And I see this with entrepreneurs too, where entrepreneurs get into a business. I had a consulting call with a client today who was talking about how they've gotten to business, they're doing very well for themselves, and they've got the golden handcuffs on their own business.
Right.
On the business that they built, that they created. Now they got the golden handcuffs. And we had this very long conversation that looked a lot like a reminder that we got into this game because we wanted freedom. And it was freedom to work if you want to, freedom to step away from it if you want to. And what I so admire about your approach, Tom, is you say that your kids' friends remember you as the fun dad.
Yeah, my greatest.
Yeah. Remind me if this is correct. Do I remember you telling me that you always were there when your kids got home from school?
Yeah, I was almost always there in the afternoons because I got home fairly early. Not always, and it got better as each year went on, but tried to always be there when they got off the bus if I could be there.
So all of this to kind of set the table for the conversation that I want to have, which is what passive income, like the goal of this conversation specifically about acquiring passive income, right, is really designed to set you free so that you can pursue the things that you want, whether that is work or business or something else.
Exactly.
And your approach, Tom, is a little bit different. You really hammered this home in the book of you pursue income, not you're not a speculator, right? You're not betting on things going up.
Correct.
You are pursuing income only for that reason exactly. Right. So,
correct.
So you are not a Bitcoin buyer.
That's correct.
You are not a Wall Street buyer.
That's correct too.
You are, and I think, forgive me if I'm sharing secrets, but you told me on a walk that you exited Wall Street after the Great Recession and never looked back.
Yeah, I actually exited before the Great Recession. So one time in my whole life I looked smart. And I never went back. So yeah, maybe I'd have been smarter if I'd have gone back in when it went down to 67.
Well, So you are an income investor. You pursue cash flow.
Yes, sir.
And that has set you free to live at choice. And so that's all we're talking about tonight, guys. There's a reason why our class called Investing for Entrepreneurs is so focused on cash flow, because the game we're playing as entrepreneurial minded people is to not be financial advisors or market timers. It is to have freedom so that you can pursue the things that excite you, whether that is going all in on your business or it's just traveling and being with your family. The name of the game we're really playing is the one that sets us free to live the lives that we genuinely want to pursue, and that comes from cash flow. So, Tom, I want to stick to chapter 8 and on, because chapter 8 is really where you get into, like, that's the get into the game chapter. It's
Right.
really where you start going into strategy.
Right.
And there was something that you brought up in here where you broke the different asset classes that
Yeah.
kind of match your criteria into 4 different types. I'm trying to find the page, but you had business,
Business,
real estate,
commodity, paper and commodities.
paper and commodities,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And this was my favorite section of the book,
Oh.
because I loved that you had businesses first.
Yeah.
Because as entrepreneurs, we often think about businesses as entrepreneurs, which means taking on a job, which means
Right.
working in the business. So would you explain a little bit about how you're thinking about business when you classify it as a passive income asset?
Sure. Like the person you were talking to on your consulting call, did that person create a business or did they create a job? Like if you're a doctor, you might have a doctor business, but you are the business. And so that's not freeing, and that's not passive. So a passive business is one where you've leveraged it out enough where you have, the perfect business is you're the owner. You've got a qualified president that knows everything about the business. They report to you once in a while you're in Tahiti on the beach, and your business grows. So as one of my mentors said, if you've got a good business, it grows while you're gone. So, and as we know, most of the people that made their money in the world have made it in some sort of business. Real estate's a nice part of people's wealth programs, but business is far and away the lion's share of where all the money was made. So that's my version of a business. If I had the smarts to do it like you do, is to create it, leverage it with the right people, use systems, and then that business grows. You keep your finger on the pulse, but you're not necessarily doing the physical work yourself.
I'm going to tell a very quick story about a business that we invest in the fund. I have an investment fund called the capitalism.com fund. We invest in businesses usually that are right around $1 million in top line. Sometimes more, sometimes less. But that's usually where the entrepreneur hits exactly that sticking point,
Right.
where they're now working a job rather than building a business. They don't feel like they can afford quality help, so they can't really scale it. And so we help kind of unblock those and liberate the entrepreneur to go build that business. And we have a company that we're invested in, and one person show, and we looked at his business and found some very low hanging fruit. I mean, very low hanging fruit from like the way he was selling it. We were able to just tweak the sales process a little bit and save him about $100,000 a year per profit. Pure profit. And so he did not want to run this test that we suggested to him, because he was like, look, what I got is working and I don't want to mess up the system. And so then I said it like this. I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to run the test, because if it works, it's $100,000 a year in pure profit. Well, you know what we're going to do with that $100,000 a year? We're going to get you a really sweet operations manager that is going to actually operate the business and liberate you to be the entrepreneur. And he went, wow, I like you, Ryan. He ran the test. It worked. And now step 2, we're hiring for that operations manager, because that person is making that pivot from being an entrepreneur to being an owner.
Yeah.
And Tom, you talk about passive investing versus active investing
Yep.
in,
Yep.
in the book. And my understanding is that being a passive investor is being an owner but not an operator. And then active investing is a little bit of blend of both. So
Exactly.
would you tell us, like, kind of walk us through a little bit of the difference?
Yeah, as it pertains to business, yeah, you can you can go to Wall Street and be a passive investor for sure. But sort of in the private world, in your world, as you, it's so hard to get out of that mindset of nobody can do it better than me. What's the song Frank Sinatra sings? Nobody does it better, or something like that. It wasn't Frank Sinatra, but if you can get your mind eventually to grow into the fact that leverage is where it's all at, and what you just described was using leverage, hiring an operations manager, or you can be the entrepreneur, so you can scale and grow the business while somebody else is actually doing the footwork. So that's my version of passively investing in a business, or passively owning a business. You can just be the money if you want to, but if you've got control, if it's your idea and you set up the people underneath you, that's the sort of the holy grail of passive business ownership.
Tom, there's this on page 122. There's this section about chasing home runs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you talk about how doctors, and really anybody, is attracted to high risk, high reward. And you caution people against this.
Yep.
Would you share why?
There's nothing wrong with having high aspirations. Swinging for the fence once in a while. But the purpose of that section there was that it was probably born out of some of my colleagues that, you show them a way to make a few extra dollars a month every month for the rest of their life. They don't get that excited, but you show them some super high risk deal, some crazy harebrained scheme, and it sounds good to them, and they'll drop money in a heartbeat. So the philosophy is basically this, most people, when the guy was using a baseball metaphor, you hit a bunch of singles, you don't have to hit any home runs. You get enough singles, you're enough runs ahead. Then you can start swinging for the fences if you wish. In the passive income world, if you just hit a few singles, end up to where you have enough money to cover a portion of your lifestyle or all of it, whatever you choose, it's then that you've got a little bit of a backstop. You've got a concrete foundation to work with. And now you can start swinging for the fences, because if you strike out, it's not going to affect your life. And you can take another one of those swings later. It gives you confidence, and it gives you the security that people think they have with their job, but they don't.
Well, we just completed a 3-week class on dividend investing.
Yeah.
And there were a couple examples that I gave throughout the class. One of them was Walgreens. Walgreens at the time of our class was paying a 5.25% dividend, which looks like nothing, right? To most people, looks like nothing. And you even tell the story about how you've run through the numbers with certain doctors where it's $1,000 a month in passive income, and they're like, well, I could just do another day of surgery,
right,
and make $1,000. And you're like, no, you're missing the point. It's a little deposit into that bucket that sets you a little bit free. And 5% on something like Walgreens, some people would overlook. But since it's a increasing dividend, next year it's 6%. The year after that, it's 6.5%. It's 7%. Since we even recorded that class, Walgreens is up more than 10%, which is not buying Bitcoin at its low. It's not buying Tesla at its low, but it's a little deposit into the asset class that ultimately sets you free. So would you tell that story about the $1,000 a month and doing another surgery, or selling another thing, or whatever it is?
And it's the compound effect. We keep forgetting that 5% is going to grow, and it's going to grow, and one day it's going to start making little babies. And that's what we want. We want our money to make babies. So the story, it was back in the day. It was a long time ago, and I actually would never solicit any of the surgeons or doctors. I just waited till they asked if they wanted. And somebody asked about, what's this I hear about what you're doing, Burns? And so I told him, and I had a project, And it was essentially $100,000 investment and no return for a year. But after about a year, it was going to start clicking off about 12%, which is $1,000 a month until forever, or until the thing sold. And he looked at me and he said, "That's not that much. I make X amount of dollars a year." I said, "I understand." He goes, "Besides, if I want an extra $1,000, I can just take call." Now, for those of you, doctors, when you take call, that means you typically don't sleep through the night. You're up working all night, and then you go to work the next day. But maybe they'll pay you $1,000 to do that. So that's great. I said, "Okay, you're right. You win. Month one, you win. What are you going to do? What are you going to do month two?" He goes, "Well, I'll just take call again." I said, "Okay, I got you. What are you going to do month three?" And he finally got tired of me asking that. But the process, then you can do it out on a piece of paper. He's going to work all night 12 times a year, make that $12,000. He'll be up $12,000 before the end of the year. Then I start catching up with $1,000, whether I'm sleeping, I'm in Tahiti, I'm with my kids, and that goes on forever. His $1,000 a month, if he gets hit by a bus or gets COVID or something like that, it stops in a heartbeat. So the point of the story was that passive income, like your 5% from Walgreens, it doesn't seem like much, but there is a compound effect. And Darren Hardy wrote a book called The Compound Effect, and Einstein talks about it. That stuff grows over time. My wealth didn't hardly blip the screen when I started, but it just grew a little bit, and eventually the graph started rising. So that passive income, you get it coming, and it starts funding your next investment, and then they start rolling over, and it really compounds quickly. And then one day you realize you're free, or you're partially free.
And the thing is, it starts so insignificantly that most people overlook it.
Absolutely.
That doctor, that emergency room doctor, passed up on $1,000 a month because it was insignificant to his life.
Right.
Missing the point that compounds over time until it replaces your income. Tom, go ahead.
What he missed is maybe he's missing $1,000 a month. But he's missing the education he would have gotten, and the feeling and the adrenaline rush of getting that check for not doing anything. You know what that does? That encourages you to go do it again. So not only did he miss just $1,000 a month, he may have missed creating his own freedom in 5 or 10 years or less.
Yeah. Tom, I have some questions about Chapter 11, which is about leverage.
Sure.
But before I do that, we've got a full green room of people who want to run something by you or me. Awesome. So Tiffany, Mike, Ben, Paul, I was wondering if we could pivot over to some Q&A. You down for that, Tom?
You bet. Let's do it.
All right. So Tiffany, you were first, so I would give you the floor, but your camera's not on, so I'm going to skip you while you put your camera back on. And I'm going to go over to the good Dr. Ben, if he is down. I haven't seen him in quite some time, and he's wearing a Sriracha shirt, so I gotta bring him on. Here we go, Ben. Dr. Ben, welcome back. It's been a while. Good to see you, my friend.
You too. It has been a while. Hey, Tom. Nice to digitally meet you. We got Liz, my wife, here in the back.
Hi, Liz.
Liz joining us. Anyway, I wanted to hop on because, I found your book through Ryan's investing course, which I went through, like that, and just ate it all up. So, hey, this book looks really interesting. It's talking to me. So I'm a radiologist.
All right.
My residency in 2017, and then promptly retired from that as I started a physical products business during residency. So a lot of the stuff that is in your book, I've only about 100 pages in so far, but it's really resonated with me. So I remember thinking a lot of those things during residency that you were describing. And in 2018, about 6 months after I finished residency, I got hit by a metaphorical bus with a health issue and was out of commission for like 3 months, which made me really, really appreciate the fact that the team that I built in the business was still running everything, still bringing in money. Not passive income, still have to work for it, but I was able to take a little hiatus and still be okay.
Nice.
So I can really appreciate that. And I guess my question is maybe a little bit more specific than Ryan was thinking it could be. But my business partner, Peter, who's an ER doc, we're both doing this business stuff kind of full time now. I work like 2 days a month at the VA hospital. And we recently closed on a $2.2 million apartment complex syndication.
Good for you.
We got a group of physicians together that knew what we did with business, and they were looking for ways to get involved. And we said, hey, we're going to do this real estate thing. And I was really interested with the talks that you had in your book about real estate and everything.
Yeah.
And so my question is, we partnered with some guys that are experienced with syndications and are working with them on that. And we want to do more and bring more physicians in. And I guess my question is, what advice would you give to somebody who is on this path? It sounds like, you were on a similar path very early on in your passive income journey.
That is a great question, Ben.
I kind of like Ryan says in his book, 12 Months to a Million, document your journey and kind of get it out to folks. They like hearing. People love to hear about success, especially when it's people like other doctors. They'll really resonate with you. Get around people that are doing it. There's now virtual conferences everywhere where you can kind of connect up with folks. And, off the side, we can have a side talk when this is over. I can kind of tell you some specific places to go and people to connect with. And it's the networking thing. It just starts happening, and people will know they'll know you're in the industry, and it'll grow. And just always take care of your investors first. They're the ones. They're like the customers that Ryan talks about. Investors are your customers, and they mean everything, and they'll stick with you for a long time.
That's what I told Peter. I said, if we're going to do this, we got to make sure we always put the people in the group first,
Always,
and us second.
Right. You're there to serve them.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think my wife, she's a lawyer, so I think a lot of the professional, angle of the book will speak to her as well. But she had a question. Did you want to?
Sure. This is an easy softball question, but I was joking with Ben last night that I feel like since I married him, my job has become optional. He said passive income, and honestly, I feel like I work for a big law firm, one of the top 100 in the country, and I was a nurse before, so I do healthcare law. I really love it. I'm very passionate about it. I feel like I'm a better attorney for not having to work.
There you go.
I'm lucky enough where it's optional for me at this point, courtesy of my sweet husband. So my question is, do you honestly feel like you're a better doctor because being in the profession is now optional for you?
Gee, 101%. When it really happened, I found that, number one, I could just eliminate the stuff I didn't like, and Ben, our world. I eliminated insurance companies. Some hospital tried to say, I stopped taking call in the 1900s. And, one of the hospitals said, well, if you'd stop taking call, you can't work here. And I said, bye, left. So it gives me time to spend with my patients. The only reason I'm doing this, it's not because I love doing surgery. That's nice. I like the people. I like people. So I sat today for 25 minutes with an 86-year-old lady who just had a list of questions. None of them were really relevant to an orthopedic surgeon. I didn't examine her. I held her hand. But I've got enough leverage that I've got a physician extender that was seeing the other people. They know that they might not get to see me all the time. I sat there and held her hand for 25 minutes. We had a great time. She's 86 years old, wanted to know if it was okay if she could walk 5 miles a day, hang her own laundry, do her gardening, and feed the cattle. And I said, you're okay. Go ahead. But it's made it a lot more fun. So I still like it.
Great. Well, I appreciate you having me on the call and the offer to connect afterward. I'll definitely take you up on that.
Yeah, please do.
So thanks.
Ben, I've got a question for you. So this was your first real estate deal that you were transacting, correct?
Well, Peter, you remember Peter from the group. He has been doing real estate deals for 2 or 3 years now, a couple of them with these sponsors and things like that.
But
so
it's your first, right?
Yeah. Well, I have one rental property duplex, but that's.
But you were raising money for this deal, right?
$550,000.
Okay, awesome. So I want to know, since this is your first one, how did you find the deal? And what gave you the confidence to be able to go and make that ask? Because those two things are the biggest thing that keeps people from implementing the stuff that Tom talks about in his book.
Sure. Yeah. So the way that we found the deal was because Peter has been actively. This has sort of been his area of interest, while I was more the marketing sort of thing, and he was like, "I'm going to go look at real estate stuff." So he has been in Omaha, where he lives. He's been sort of networking and going to events and talking to people. And he connected with this company who they have 46 million under management, 700 something doors, something like that. And so he's been working with them on partnership deals, and then that kind of evolved. He said, hey, maybe we could do this syndication with a group of doctors. And the reason we had this group of doctors was during residency, while I was doing all this stuff, all of my attendings would see what I'm up to, and they're like, hey, how can we get on that? How can we get some of that? That sounds great. You're not even going to practice,
That's how it happens.
Radiologist after residency. I was like, well, I'm not planning to, and so we did a couple projects with them that actually ended up going really badly, and they lost money. Most of it, two of the three that we did lost money, and one of them was a big enough mistake that we just said, this is our fault. We're going to make you guys whole because, it was bad diligence on our part. We're going to make you guys whole, and maybe in the future we can do something together. And so because we showed that if things went wrong, we were going to do the best that we could to make it right, people were willing to go again. And this time we did it smarter. We did it, more due diligence. We were more careful because we're wiser after making those mistakes. So that's how we were able to do it.
Perfect. That's beautiful. Yeah. Well done, Ben. Well done.
Nicely done.
It's good to see you, man. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight.
Yeah, you too. Look forward to hearing the rest of the call.
All right. See you, Ben.
See ya.
Bye, Liz. I want to get to Mike Damrow in a second, but Tom, I wanted to hear from you about the deal flow that you pursue, because right now, world's different. And I remember before March of 2020, you saying, we haven't bought a deal in a while. Like, things are overvalued. I'm not getting the cash flow that I want in order to get into a deal. Haven't bought anything for a while. I'd like to, but there's not a whole lot that I'm pursuing. So what about now? Are you seeing things come around? And where do you get your deal flow when you're getting it? Tell me about that.
So they've not come around. In fact, cap rates have declined, which means prices have actually risen slightly during COVID. It's shocking, but apartments, we're in the apartment world. We're still underbuilt. There's still quite a demand. Certainly you can make mistakes, but there's a lot of money out there, institutional money that's chasing deals. And so they're selling at really, really high valuations. We use what's called a cap rate, which just, is the lower it gets, the more expensive. So that's one thing. No deals yet. Do we know there's some problems out there? There's a lot of single family homes that are at the 90-day point. High percentage of single family homes are at 90 days delinquent. We know that. So what's that going to do? And there's a point to this. Those people may or may not lose their homes. Where are they going to go when they lose their homes?
Yeah.
They're going to go to apartments. And apartments aren't perfect, but everybody still wants them. It's still a darling, along with self-storage and industrial. So we haven't found anything to buy yet. Others seem to be finding some, but I see the deal flow really contracting, and folks are getting some deals. They're either finding a needle in a haystack, or maybe they're more optimistic than we are on a pro forma basis. So we still build. Where do we get our deal flow? It's just we've been getting it from, we know brokers all across the country, lenders across the country, developers, contractors. So it's that huge net and network of people that continuously bring us stuff, and eventually we put it together,
And since I asked you, I'll comment as well where my deal flow comes from. I don't look for deals because I am not a full-time real estate investor. So I have a point to this. Stick with me for a second. I invest in real estate, but I am not a full-time real estate investor. It is where I put my money for cash flow. Right. I put a portion of my portfolio into long-term dividend-paying stocks. I put the cash, like the profits at the end of the year, into other cash flow assets like real estate, but I do not pursue deals because how many of you think that I can find a deal before Tom does? Not going to happen. Why? Because Tom's been doing this for 30 years. He's got a network of people. He's got a track record. They're not going to talk to me. Now, if we were to flip it, if one of you is looking for a business advisor and business investor, you're not going to call Tom. You're going to call me. You're going to call me because I have that track record. I have that deal flow. I have that network. But guess what? When Tom finds his next deal, he can call me and I'll wire him money. And that's called participating in a private placement. That's investing with the investors. Because as a passive investor, I can make it easier for Tom to acquire more properties because he's got this group of people that will invest with him. And that allows him to go pursue more deals. And it allows me to participate in some of that passive income by being a passive investor. So that's called participating in syndications. And that comes from your network too. That comes from going to meetups and being involved in the groups and pursuing those relationships that can make those possibilities happen. So, by the way, Jason Hartman, who was on the call tonight, just put a comment down. He helps people find their deal flow too. So there's people in your network.
People.
He helps a lot of people do that.
Helps a lot of people find
Helps a lot of people do that. So he's a good person to go to. You should call Jason Hartman if you're looking for deal flow. Mike Damrow, are you good to come on? Give me a thumbs up if you're ready to join us. All right, let's do this. What's up, Mike? How are you tonight?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. What you got?
So my wife and I, we've been on Amazon, like everybody, for about 5 years now, heavy into grocery, and moving a different way after, I listened to the book. My wife read the book, so whatever. But
are you talking about 12 Months to 1 Million?
Yeah,
or are you talking about Tom's book? Okay.
No, I'm sorry, your book. Yeah. So and we got a lot more excited about it after listening to that book. After listening to the book. After being on Amazon and kind of being in their sandbox for a long time. And that'll always be at some point, I'm sure. But my question really is so we've had our product is in the pet space. We've had this dog since she was a puppy. Used the shampoo on her forever. And then we were going to go with this lady that made it to have her PL it for us. And that kind of fell apart, but we ran into actually a better product that we're going to probably go with, and we already have samples and that sort of thing. So the long story short is, and the only question I really have for you is, in the book you talk about building your audience, obviously, and building your audience. So do you need since we already have a product which is about, or a line which is about 8 different products, and it's kind of like as a system. Would you sell those as like a package together? They, like a number 1 and 3 that work together, or would you sell it as single products and then, suggest they have other ones based on the problems they have with their pet?
Mike, what is the total volume of your store right now?
On Amazon?
All together.
Well, right now we're just on Amazon with wholesale. And, and grocery and stuff. And this year we're a little bit down, like around that 450 range, 450,000.
Total for the year?
Yeah.
All right. So packaging your products as a kit or as a bundle is fine, but not until you're at the million. So
right. But what we're doing now, just so we're clear, the stuff we're doing now is just grocery through the pet thing is brand new for us. It's brand new, just coming. Okay. So what we're looking to do is, bring that product on, continue with Amazon, obviously, for cash flow, and starting this other product with a gentleman that makes it.
So this is a new business.
A new business, it's the product that you talk about.
Are you going to be selling it on Amazon?
Yeah, Amazon and other places, even retail. Yeah.
Okay, so you're already thinking too wide.
Okay.
Like, I'm going to sell it on Amazon, my own store, retail. Should I also bundle it with this other kit?
Yeah.
Right? Like you're already stressed and the business hasn't started yet.
Sure.
So your job, and Mike, people hate me until they love me because I tell them to keep it simple.
Okay.
Your job is to get one of those products to 25 sales a day.
Okay. Yeah.
And then it's to launch product number 2, 3,
Yeah.
and 4. That'll get you to the million.
Yeah.
Then we can talk about kits.
Okay.
And after that, then we can talk about retail.
Okay.
And then you can show up at the retailer's door with like, hey, here are my numbers. And the retailer goes, oh, hot damn, this ain't a new business. They've got the funding, they've got the inventory, they've got the supply chain, they've got their shit together. Okay, now we can trust them on our stores.
Yeah.
And now you've got exponential growth. So entrepreneurs, and for we're just meeting. Have we met before, Mike?
No, brand new
No,
to the
this is our-
1%. Yeah.
This is our first conversation, but I'm going to
Yeah.
dive real deep. I'm just going to go for the jugular here. That is why the first business is only at 450,000
Okay.
with 8 products, because you're going too wide too quickly.
No.
And so if you were to fall on the sword of whatever your one hero product was and get that to 100 sales a day, the rest of the business would grow faster.
Right, but the Amazon is other people's products, wholesale, grocery. It's not our product, so that is
Got it.
just that's that's
It
that.
is pure
So,
cash flow for you.
yeah, it is. Yeah,
Right. So avoid the temptation of doing too many things before you have proven the idea, proven the marketplace, proven the price points, proven the brand.
Mhm.
And so many people bite off more than they can chew, and then they try to force it. You want to be more like Tom, where you do not need this business to grow through retail because you're doing so well on Amazon that retail is optional.
Okay.
You wanna not have to launch that product that looks good on paper because the other products are selling so well because people love them. You want to not have to be at Amazon's beck and call because you've got a raving customer base that loves what you've put together, right? That's a business.
Okay.
And you can only do that if you start with that small intent of, I'm going to make one really great product. I'm going to launch it to that seed audience. That seed audience is going to carry me to 25 sales a day. It's going to look real slow at first, but then you're going to get that cash flow that's going to make product number 2 faster, and then faster, and then faster. And you'll look up a year from now and you'll have $1 million business with a raving customer base that will buy from you on your own store and that will go to the retail store and buy it. This last week, I saw a product that I had seen on Instagram and I saw it in stores. I was like, hey, I know these guys. And I bought them off the shelf, right? Now, had I never seen them before, I would have never bought them. I wouldn't have even noticed them on the shelf.
Right.
So that's why it's a linear progression that then hits an exponential growth curve.
Great. And my last question would be, so when we talk about in your book about building, your raving fans or your base and that sort of thing, when you start that, whether it be Facebook or Instagram or whatever, are you starting it with your actual brand, or are you starting it as a discussion group to have that base start and then introduce your product at some point?
I think you should do it as your brand.
Okay.
Unless for some reason you find it easier or more advantageous to do it as something else.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
the path of least resistance here is really your friend when it comes to
Yeah.
audience building. Because
Okay.
and the reason is because most people will overthink it and force it and thus sacrifice the connection and the intimacy that actually makes building an audience special.
Okay.
Right? So like the reason why you will trust me moving forward is because we're having an intimate conversation right now.
Yeah.
And that couldn't happen if I was worried about the numbers on this discussion.
Right.
Right? So the secret to building an audience is remembering that it's person to person. So whatever frees you up to operate in that place, start from there and you build the audience around that. Ask somebody who has made that mistake several times before of like thinking about what the strategy should be rather than remembering that it's just people. And that's what will help you build the audience.
Perfect. I really appreciate the time. Thank you.
You bet. Great to meet you, Mike. Thanks for being here.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Tom, I want to ask you about leverage.
Yep.
So chapter 11 is all about leverage. And I've had to come full circle with my relationship with debt and things like other people's money and the responsibility of what it means when I take on other people's money as somebody who is in charge of overseeing a return. Right? That's some pressure. So I was hoping that you could talk us through good debt and bad debt.
Yeah.
And also just when you got comfortable leveraging other people's money.
Sure. Good debt. Well, bad debt's what most of us have. We got a car payment, we got a house payment, believe it or not. Have car payment, house payment, furniture rental, anything that you've got to pay that, number one, has to be paid by you. You've got to discharge that full debt and doesn't make you money. So bad debt comes out of your pocket and doesn't make you any money. We do need those things, but it still can be called bad debt. We'd rather not have a car payment. Good debt puts money in your pocket, and typically it's paid by somebody else. What I mean by that is if you have debt on a rental property, and Mr. Hartman's on the show, he knows this back of his hand. You have debt on a house, and somebody's paying you enough rent that it covers all your expenses plus your mortgage and puts a few dollars in your pocket. Well, that's good debt because it puts money in your pocket, and your tenants are more than happy to pay that for you because you've given them a nice house to live in, a nice backyard that they like, good school district, that sort of thing. So that's my easiest definition of good debt.
And you've got in, I think it's the last chapter of the book, you've got one of kind of the pillars of real estate is amortization, which is other people paying down that debt.
Exactly.
And I always kind of saw it as like a burden to carry that amount of debt. My buddy Shaquille Prosla says he now brags about not how much money he makes, but how much debt he pays every month because he has so many businesses and investments that he's got debt on. When did you start to get comfortable with carrying that? So
it, my first debt was debt that I had personally guaranteed, but I felt so good about it's part education. The business world, how to grow an Amazon business and a bunch of other kind of businesses. So you're pretty comfortable when you see something likely, and that you could probably take a little debt on it. I know if I see a certain property, numbers don't lie. Do the numbers will tell you what to do. That's a quote from a friend of mine. But if I know that I've got a huge buffer between what should be or what is now and what could be bad enough to make my debt a problem, I'll pull the trigger all the time, and it's never been an issue. So it's education. It's knowing your market, knowing your niche, knowing kind of what you're doing. As things went on, obviously the zeros added, and the numbers got bigger. Then again, it's part education and part the fact that I started moving into non-recourse debt. So non-recourse debt means the property itself has enough value that the lender doesn't underwrite you, doesn't look to you to pay it back. It looks to the property, and they'll give you enough money on your debt to do what you need to do. But they know that if they take that property back, it's going to be able to take care of the debt that they've given you. So that certainly did help. So I like having debt that I don't necessarily have to pay back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. But so in other words, once you build up a certain track record and get to a certain level of deal flow, then other people, or then the people who are lending you money are guaranteeing that based on the deal rather than you.
Exactly.
So you're not the one holding the bag.
Correct. They do look at you too, because they want to make sure as an operator that you can operate the property. So it not helps to have a track record. And that just came over time. You just get comfortable, you so easily spit out how how to help the last guy do his business. Same thing happens in real estate. You just get to know it so well that you don't get that nervous getting the debt. You know, when you really get nervous when you take somebody else's money as an investor, that's when the blood pressure goes up, because it's more responsibility. I don't mind losing my money. I just don't want to lose my investors' money.
Right. Yeah, I got you. I'm going to go back to the green room. Valentine, you're yelling at somebody, but I'd love to bring you on. Give me a thumbs up. All right, here we go. Let's do this. Good evening, Valentine.
Doing?
How are you?
I'm doing good, man. How you guys doing?
Doing well. Thanks for joining us tonight. What can we do for you?
No, I'm excited to listen. I got my buddy here, Peter. Him and his wife runs a dentistry here. And
hey, Peter.
How you doing?
So I'm getting him in on the 1%, bit by bit here.
Good.
Yeah.
So
Good man.
I'm just going to take this off top. He's an awesome consultant. He knows way more than he think he does. And then he runs the office, taking it to above $1 million fairly quick. They've had things go against them 3 times, a hurricane.
Yeah, the office got destroyed by a hurricane and then a pandemic, which shut us down for 3 months completely.
But they kept rising it back because of the quality. Now, I keep telling him, hey, why don't you start going into consulting? And he thinks he's not ready. That kind of mentality is what I'm like. And I just want to throw it at him right now. That mentality is he is more than ready to do that. I'm sure that he is. But how do you get over that? How do you at what point does he feel that, you know what, I can do this, and he can start training other dentistries that are opening up and showing how to do that?
I thought I got invited for drinks.
No, you're not. I'm fixing this shit right now.
Well, I mean, I'll answer this from a business perspective, and then Tom can add his 2 cents from his medical background. But in consulting, you have to kick yourself out of the equation. So the key to consulting is remembering that your goal is not to be a certain thing or be better than anyone or even be qualified. It is to find the problem for the client and solve it. It's to find the problem that is holding them back and serving them by helping them solve that problem. So, for example, I have a client in actually the medical sector. I have no business being in this business, but I can very clearly see their problem from a business perspective, and I am qualified to help them solve their problem because I see it clearly and can help guide them towards the solution. That's your job as a consultant. It is not to have a specific set of knowledge or to have a certain skill set or qualification. It is simply being able to see the problem better than the client and knowing the path to the solution. And so your past track record, your past business failures, your past wins are all irrelevant. All that's relevant is if you can help the other person navigate a certain challenge. Tom, I'm curious from your medical experience of how you would answer this question.
Sure. Now don't forget, now as a consultant, you're still trading your money for your time for money. But passive wise, it's not necessarily a passive activity, but it's a good one to create money to get some passive income. Sometimes people suffer from things that I've certainly suffered from myself, which is, a little bit of imposter syndrome or a lot of imposter syndrome and self-limiting beliefs. If you can just sit back and look what you've done in the past, if you believe you can help people, like Ryan said, find their problem. You don't necessarily have to have all the answers, but if you have a willingness and a desire to help other people, that's going to ooze out of you. They're going to see that. And I think the best way, kind of like chapter 8 says, just get in the game, give it a try. If you crash and burn, you crash and burn. You might just find you really like it.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Good stuff, man.
All right. Great to see you guys. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
All right. See you guys.
All right, bye.
Hey, final call for the green room. If you want to come hang out and ask Tom a question or ask me a question, go ahead and click the link inside of the Facebook group and you can come join us. Amanda, I see you. Paul, I see you. You guys, if you guys turn on your cameras, I'd be happy to bring you guys on. Tom, I've asked you this question before, but it still surprises me. You are a very successful investor. You have, I mean, you're building a lot of these properties. Like you are, I mean, that sounds complicated. I don't know if it is, but it sure sounds complicated. You operate your practice and you do surgery several times a week, yet you've always got time for me. Like I have never called you and you'd be like, I'm way too busy right now. Like I am busier than you, which boggles my mind. I'll blame it on I have 2 kids under 6, so I'll blame it on that. But I mean, you are a very active parent. We go for long hikes together. Like you wrote a great book and you wrote the thing, right? I mean, you wrote the thing.
Yeah. Yep.
And so there's like I guess my question is like, how the hell do you have time and peace of mind getting so much done?
I'm not Superman. I'm not as cool as you make me out to be, but
yes, you are.
Who wouldn't answer Ryan Moran's call? But I've gotten, I'm still sometimes a little poor at delegating. I'm still, we're all still working on stuff. I'm still working on my own leverage for my own businesses, but I just gravitate to the things that give me joy in life and that really make a difference and that are most important. So I just prioritize. So, as you've said before, there's certain phone numbers that no matter what you're doing, you answer them. I also answer the important ones. I hit delete or ignore quite a few times on other calls. But usually not if they're in my phone book, because people are important. I believe every connection is important. And if they're in my phone, they're important to me. So if there's a name on it, I'll answer it. And even if I'm busy, I'll say, can I call you back? So I don't know how. I'm probably not as busy as you think. I've got 2 awesome kids. I don't have to parent so hard anymore because they're as old as most of your, students probably. But they're great kids, and they don't require parenting time anymore. But I get to hang out with them a lot. So that was kind of a long, I don't know answer, but I try to do things that are important to me in life, which is what that passive income gave me the ability to do.
Yeah, but there's also such a nugget of wisdom in this is you only do what is important.
Yeah.
Right? And so like I'm still learning this lesson as an entrepreneur of how much dumb shit I do. It's like how many calls, I don't take a lot of calls, but how many emails I answer that I shouldn't be answering. Or even that I'm doing it from a space of I'm already overwhelmed. So when I get the email, it's just another thing on the plate.
Right.
And what I've noticed about you is because you're so at choice, you choose a lot of things and you're happy in them.
Yeah.
Like you choose to mentor that person and you enjoy it.
Yeah.
You choose to write the book and you enjoy it.
Yeah.
And so you have peace of mind and then. It's like you have freedom and then. And most people do the opposite. It is, I'll do the thing so I can have freedom. I will take the client I don't like so I can have the freedom. I'll start that business I don't want so I have freedom. And you say no, freedom first and then. And I used to think, Tom, that you had peace of mind because you had wealth. But now I realize after I've gotten to know you, is that you have wealth because you have peace of mind.
Yeah.
And you talk about this in the beginning of the book where you say that wealth is a mindset. That freedom is a mindset. That the way we think about things is everything. It's a little bit surprising to start a book about wealth with some thoughts about thoughts. So tell me why you decided to start the book there.
Look, everything starts there. Everything starts in the mind. Every product that's ever been produced, every play, every movie, it all started as a thought. And if you've got negative thoughts or thoughts that aren't successful, for lack of a better word, then it's not going to manifest into something that's beautiful. It's not, the magic's not going to happen if it doesn't start in your brain. So, and you have to, and it depends on what you think wealth is. Wealth doesn't have to be a bunch of money. You can make a small amount of money and have small expenses. And if you're just free and you want to just travel the world or travel the country or whatever your pocketbook allows you to do, if you're free, if you've bought back your time, then you're a wealthy person. So I was asked the other day on a podcast it was run by a millennial. He was a super guy. He was 23 years old, and he wanted to know what my number was that demonstrated wealth. And he hated the "it depends" answer. And he's a great, it depends. It always depends, So I have a story in the book about a guy who makes $50,000 a year, but he's free. He's bought his time. What is that worth if you're 30 years old and you've bought back your time forever? So I'm not perfect. I want to be the guy you think I am. So be the person your dog thinks you are. But
the guy I think that you are is somebody who wakes up and enjoys going to the office most days, is present with his patients, comes home and either reads a book or watches TV or has lunch with one of his kids or his wife, takes a call from a friend or a mentee, and then goes for a hike or does something fun for recreation. That
sounds pretty good.
And that's the guy I think you are, and that's the guy that I want to be when I grow up.
Well, I appreciate that, and it is fun. And life is not perfect, but I always, even back when my wife and I first got married, I always told her, and we had no money, didn't come from money, we didn't have any money. And I said, whatever we do in life, let's just make sure we have fun while we're doing it. So I know, because she reminds me I said that, and we were pretty dirt poor back then. So maybe that's what it was. I've always wanted to have fun. I mean, we're not here to not have fun. So you can make anything fun if you use your mind for it the right way.
Tom, I wanted to ask you the question because it's kind of cliche, and I know some people are thinking it. I'm looking at the chat box coming through, and I wanted to propose a question like, where would you suggest somebody who is just starting out in their journey start? But I kind of think you've answered in the book by saying you've got to be in the game. It's almost like you start once you get in the game, not you figure it out and then you go. Yeah. And I think the answer to that question is like, you just start super small and you buy dividend paying stock, or you get an investment that pays you $100 a month, or you do something that adds a little bit to the passive income side of the equation. Is that how you would answer that question, or would you answer it differently?
No, you did a good job. Of course, it always starts with finding out what's out there. Some people you talk to and they'll say, I had no idea. So that's one thing. Learn what's out there, and that's easy. There's books, there's stuff online, there's stuff you can get it everywhere. But you're right, getting in the game. It's like our dentist that we talk to, he can just give it a shot. Do a consulting gig, he either blows it or finds out that he's awesome at it. And then you start learning more, and your reticular activating system starts kicking and starts working, and you start finding the things that really resonate with you, and you get good at it. And you're right, start small, because if you make mistakes, you may have, if you make mistakes, you'll have small losses, and those grow from there. So
I want to give the floor to Curtis, who just joined us in the green room. Curtis, give me a thumbs up if you're ready to come on here. All right, let's do this. Good evening, Curtis. How's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing well, sir. What can we do for you?
So, Tom, just want to say nice to meet you. I'm an investor in Rosario, so great.
Oh, excellent.
Great to meet you. Thank you very much. So my only question is just so right now I'm still very much on the operator side of the business. So agency of about 50, 60 people or so. And I'm just, thinking about how to make the transition over to the owner side and the manager side, as opposed to just being the operator that's in the business.
Yeah.
So I don't know how relevant it is to this conversation specifically, but just want to get your thoughts on that. If you guys have gone through that, or any kind of thoughts to help out there.
Is it a real estate business or
yeah, it's a marketing agency, but I'm thinking about it from now, in like how everything is being operated now to now like future businesses as well. So just kind of thinking about the transition from operator over to, kind of the manager side.
Well, now one, if it was real estate, I could give you some pretty good information. But the first thing I'd do is I'd find somebody that's done that before, tap their brain, pay them whatever they need to get, and learn how to do it. I'd find somebody that's done it before, because it's that kind of quantum jump, right, Ryan, from being the operator and being in there forever to finding out to figuring out how to manage the thing. So that's right. I'd go find somebody that's done it before.
Curtis, how big is your team right now?
So the business is about 60 people.
So that's 60 people.
That's big.
Okay, so you're used to hiring people, you're used to managing people. So what is keeping you out of the owner's chair of being replaced?
So for myself, I'm more of the in the weeds, hardcore kind of nerd side where I'm managing the accounts. I'm really in the business. It's like really built off of that standpoint. So, hey, that's positive in my eyes.
So here, let me a brief story. I don't know if you were here at the beginning of the call, but we were chatting with Justice, who is a member of our team that just joined us starting about a month ago. And his job is to spearhead the quality of our products and improving the quality of our products in our community. Guess whose job that was before? Me. And I pride myself on creating a great product. But you know what it did? It kept me stuck in the business and actually prevented me from creating a great product. It allowed me to create good products, but not great products. I need help to create great products. You know what? And the role that I'm hiring for right now is somebody who is in charge of email marketing. Guess who has sent every email that capitalism.com has ever sent? And so I am taking little splinters, and this is how it relates to what Tom is talking about. I'm basically reinvesting in my business and sacrificing a little bit of short-term cash flow to create leverage that will lead to long-term growth. But but it took a big humble pill for me to realize that it was actually best for my customers for me to be replaced. It's best for my team members if I am replaced. And that being in the weeds of everything was actually a disservice to them. So you running a team of 60 people and still being in the weeds is a little bit confusing to me. So I either need some more data to be able to help, or you need to tell me what's keeping you back from doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's more just on like the skill set side. So obviously an agency, and we have a bunch of different, a couple different partners where everybody kind of handles the different pieces. Whereas I'm more on the strategy side, account management with clients and things like that. So I've always just done that really, really well. So I've always wanted to make the transition, but it's kind of the thing where, it's hard to hand over the reins of a lot of that stuff because the classic we have great people, but nobody's ever going to do the same job that you can, because obviously people don't care about it the same way as you potentially would, where you're able to do, you want to do anything and everything to make sure everything's perfect. So that's always been my core struggle.
So Ryan, can I say something?
Please.
I'm a big fan. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Robert Kiyosaki. He's a friend of mine. He's got a thing called the cash flow quadrant. A lot of people have seen it. Well, in the bottom left corner is the S quadrant, which is the self-employed, a non-scalable self-employed, like a doctor. We are the business. What you're struggling with right now is crossing over that vertical line, because the essence of the self-employed business is not scalable. The true B business is scalable. And it's hard. Nobody does it better than me, right? I heard you say that, actually. and it's tough. Ryan's got the business brain, but at least from standing back and looking, it's, you got to go. I would think you got to go over that hump and figure out how to hire that person to be you, how to figure out how to train them, and let go somewhat that only you care about it as much as anybody else. So that's just my 2 cents. I'm not a business guy, but that's what I see from the outside.
And my feedback is that the thought that nobody can do it like me or will care about it as much as me is an assumption. It's a thought that you've created and that you keep repeating, and you're hiring with that assumption, which means that it's a self-fulfilled prophecy. You're hiring with the assumption, well, nobody's going to do it better than me, and then that creates the scenario in which they haven't done it as well as you. Though it has taken me years to get over this, but what I have finally done is look at the areas that are causing me the most stress and preventing me from serving at the level of capacity that I genuinely want to serve. And I know that the way that I serve the best is when I'm working 2 to 3 hours a day with a lot of time to recharge and think and be creative and write and record content and do the things that I love to do, because that's when I'm at choice. Like we've talked about, when Tom has passive income, that puts him at choice, which makes him a good author, a good speaker, a good doctor. I need to be at time choice in order to be. So like today I got into a fight with my team about how many meetings I have to attend, because it's like, I need time freedom to be able to serve at the highest level. And so I am now isolating, okay, what are the things that are preventing me from actually doing that? And like right now, it is lead acquisition. I put so much time and thought into lead acquisition, and I'm not that good at it. That's the next. I think I'm good at it. Results say otherwise. I need to hire for that specialty and get the hell out of the way. I do so many coaching calls and so much like unscalable shit for our members and for clients. I need help with that, and I hired Justice for that. So it is isolating those individual pieces. Nobody is going to be a better vision caster for capitalism.com than me right now. But there are definitely better product managers, email marketers, media buyers, and those are all the things that I'm doing because no one cares about it more than me. And so my guess is you're wearing 9 different hats right now, and you might need 9 people to replace you in order to do that. But what you'll find is that the business grows enough to pay for them and sets you free to go pursue the next thing.
Yeah, totally agree.
Curtis, how did you discover Presario?
I mean, it must have been through you.
That's what I was hoping.
Or it was either through you in some fashion, or it was, I think Tom was on your podcast or something at one point in time, but I think I might have found Tom right before, and then I was like, wow, that's great. But it's one of those two.
Well, I appreciate you, Curtis. That's for sure.
I'm just trying to justify that I provided some amount of value to Tom in our friendship and our life. That's all I was trying to do there. So thank you for making me feel good about myself. All right, Curtis, good to see you. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight.
All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Hey, we're going to conclude the night. Ben requested 2 more minutes with you, Tom.
Okay.
He had one more question, and I mean, how do you say no to a doctor in a sriracha shirt? So let's do it. What's up, Ben? What did you want to wrap with?
Yeah, thanks for the second go around here. Liz is back here just loving this whole thing.
Good.
I just finished my very strong old fashioned, so hopefully I can articulate a good question here. But okay, so you mentioned that so real estate was your vehicle of choice for growing your passive income, and you mentioned apartment complexes and self-storage and one other thing that I can't. Industrial.
Yeah, at least that's what's kind of doing well right now.
Okay, so my question is, from the perspective of both real estate and passive income as a whole, what is your take on the concept that diversification is for wealth preservation and concentration is for wealth creation.
I think that's Warren Buffett, yeah, I agree. Now, I agree. I think focus maybe creates more wealth, and that's focus is maybe something I've lacked in my 35 years, but that's just why I keep going, I guess. But diversification certainly is helpful. I mean, I don't go so far like Warren Buffett. If somebody says diversification for people that don't know what they're doing. If that was me in the stock market, absolutely, that would make sense for me. But focus. The thing about focus is it grows. Once people know that you do something really well, they keep coming to you, and opportunities keep coming to you. And so, I think focus is. I think it does grow things bigger, faster. And I fully admit I've lacked focus over time. But that's my answer for that.
So from the context of real estate and having a fiduciary responsibility to your investors, at what point would you say, you've already invested in 5 apartment complex syndications. I think you should probably try something else to kind of spread your investment out a little bit.
I mean, if I'm talking to one of my investors, yeah, I do that all the time. We just tell them we want part of your portfolio. We want to be a portion of your portfolio, because even just within the narrow thing of real estate, there's so many different types. So now I can't stop them if they just fall in love with apartments and want to invest with us all the time. And that's great. It makes us feel good and it's fun. But if they ask, I will suggest maybe get something different, because as we talked about today, apartments are doing well. Industrial's really picked up the last several years. Self-storage did well through COVID. Retail's doing horrible. Hotels are doing horrible. So had you been across those 5 submarkets in our industries, you'd still probably be okay. That kind of spreads things thin, because as an investor, you sort of want to know what you're investing in, or you really want to know the people you're investing with. That's the 2 ways people invest. They either understand the product type, or they really, really trust the people that do it. And, we kind of have both people. We have some people that just say, I'm in. And we ask them, don't you want to see the paperwork? They're like, no, it's been 15 years, which is nice, so that's my answer. For you as a sponsor, you might want to stay pretty narrow.
Sure.
As an investor, nothing wrong with trying out other stuff.
All right, great.
But I actually want to comment on this. So when this happened for me, it was in the context of business. So it's just slightly different, but I think the principle is the same. So we're working with a new team member who started just over a month ago. His name is Alex, and he was brought on to help with our video content and with YouTube growth. And if any of you who are watching this have noticed a shift in the quality of our content, that's Alex's handiwork. And Alex has really fallen on the sword and advocated that we need to pick one platform and just absolutely go all in on this platform. And if you've been following me for a while, I've been all over the place. I've dabbled. I have a podcast, a YouTube channel, a blog, an email list, and an Instagram. And sometimes I do political rants on Facebook and Twitter. Right. So I am the exact opposite of focus. Even though I feel focused, I haven't been in practice. And finally, after several weeks of chatting with Alex and starting to get a little bit of a snowball rolling, I said, I finally understand. And this is, we hours of conversation and looking at examples. I said, I finally realize that if we go along with this plan that you've outlined, it's kind of like I've been scattering seeds for a long time. And one of these seeds is just starting to sprout a little bit. And what I've been doing in the past is overlooking the sprouts to plant more seeds. But now I realize what I need to do is just water this one seed, because over time, what will happen is that will grow into a tree and it will produce fruit that will drop under the ground and plant other trees. And I'll never have to think about planting seeds ever again. And so the point at which you might advise somebody to diversify is when your performance on their investment is producing that other fruit. In the same way that it's time for me to look at actually building an Instagram following when my YouTube presence is so impactful that I can put up a video and it puts 100,000 people on my Instagram. So when your tree, your investment portfolio is spitting off so much cash that you can go buy Ethereum or you can go buy Walgreens dividend paying stock, that's when you diversify. That's when you tell a client to diversify. When you're like, all right, guys, we got a nice tree here. Take your apples and go buy Apple. Right? So that would be my advice is I can't tell you how much more peace of mind I have just knowing now that I'm planting a tree. And it's a little baby sprout right now. But go plant a tree, man. And go plant a tree with your investors and then go have them diversify.
Gotcha. All right. Plant a tree, feed your stallions. Thanks, guys. I'm
There
out.
you go. All right. See you, Ben.
We'll talk, man.
By the way, if you want to help me out by planting a tree and you're watching this on YouTube, like this video and hit that big old subscribe button. Tom, I love every minute of us hanging out.
Me too. Absolutely.
And now we officially know that somebody has found you from your 3 appearances on capitalism.com. That's good news. We'll keep it going. I don't think you're taking on new investors right now, but if you are, give a quick plug of where they can find you. And if not, I know you're starting to do the whole personal branding thing.
Oh yeah.
So give us a quick plug for where people can find your work.
Okay, guys. Yeah. So I'm learning how to do all this stuff Ryan just talked about. And but it's fun. It's a journey for me. So you know what I did, Ryan? I just got in the game. So I just put stuff out. Anyway, so you can find me 2 places. You should be focused. I'm going to give you 2 things. So my new deal is richdoctor.com. That's a new brand thing. I'm learning a lot. I'm trying to put out some good educational stuff. But Curtis probably found us at presarioventures.com. PRESARIO ventures.com. That's the investment arm. Educational arm is, me at Rich Doctor.
If you found value in this conversation, go tip Tom by spending $7.99 on Kindle or $20 for the physical copy. I mean, it's his life's work. Go tip the man by buying the book on Amazon. For goodness sake, give the man a tip. Buy the book. the man obviously needs the $7.99, guys.
Yeah, I got it's like I tell people, I need that $15. I need that $7.99. But $7.99 won't change my life, but it might change yours. So.
That's right. If you're watching this on a replay somewhere, I'd love for you to put a comment on a question to something. I have been asking Tom and telling Tom that there are people who would pay a premium to work with him in a small group of people and participate in possible deal flow or networking that came from Tom's several decades of relationships and advice. Would you just leave a comment if you're the type of person that would want something like that? All this does is help me prove a point to Tom that he should release some sort of mastermind offer or premium offer that gets into his network and involves hikes and coffees and smoothies with Tom to work on their mindset and their strategy, and then participate in his network and his deal flow when they're at the level where they can do that. So if you are that person, reach out to Tom at richdoctor.com and let him know. And I'll teach Tom how to put together a waiting list for people who want something like that, because I think it would be a huge value add. And Tom's not sure he believes me yet that people would want that, and so I want you to tell me. There's already yeses coming in the comments, so we might get you your buyers list after this call, Tom.
You guys have a great resource here, and he'll push you to succeed. So yes, you can get me at tom@richdoctor.com, and somehow we need to go tip Ryan as well.
Tom, I so appreciate you, man. I'll see you on our next hike.
You betcha, buddy. Let's get to it soon. Thanks to everybody else. I really enjoyed the time.
All right. Thanks for being here, everybody. Have a great night. Talk to you later.
All right.
Bye.